There's a huge push from the government around Atmanirbhar Bharat, building within India, building for India, and maybe selling it to the world. Your thoughts around it?
It's a necessity. It's no longer a luxury. Now, especially with the recent happenings in the last 3 years, your Russia-Ukraine war, 2 years now, Israel-Hamas war, and your COVID pandemic, has thrown up two very, very important issues. One is globalization. Second is the effect on supply chain. The supply chain issues being used as a weapon. And with these recent events, the government has given a lot of impetus to the self-reliance. They are encouraging joint ventureship. They are dealing with other countries to give the technology. Nutshell, the bottom line is, it's a necessity. We have woken up a bit late. We have gone into fourth gear. Maybe we need to go into fifth gear.
I've been a student of history. I love reading up, but whatever little I've seen, I'm looking around, I clearly see that for the first time, India is not being bullied to take decisions. We take decisions in our interest. Brushing it aside by calling it populist, I don't think that's the right answer. If I am the leader of my country and I don't take care of my own people and my own country's interest, then why is the country hiring me?
You're right. The trend is changing in the sense that thought process, either you're with me or you're against.
Right.
It's changing.
It's changing, absolutely.
It's not necessary that I'm not with you. That doesn't mean I'm against you.
Yeah.
So this thought process is changing in the world. India has been doing a tightrope walk. The pressure is on to join either the Western camp or the Eastern camp. But India so far has managed very well. We are in a very, very good position, but a tricky position. I call it, we are like a bride who's being wooed by 2 grooms or maybe more grooms. So it's a good opportunity for us. However, it's a challenge as well. If we play our cards properly, it's an opportunity. If we don't play our cards properly, then it's a challenge.
Do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail.
Look for the silver lining whenever a cloud appears in the blue.
Hello and welcome to Between Us. Make every conversation count. Today is a very, very special episode because I have a very, very special person. Air Marshal Anil Khosla, who is the recipient of Param Vishisht Seva Medal, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, and the Vayu Sena Medal. He is also the retired Vice Chief of Indian Air Force. I'm looking forward to this conversation. We'll probably go down memory lane and ask very, very interesting question. But what I'm really looking forward to is how do we conduct ourselves as individuals? Bring out the leader within us. I'm looking forward to this episode, and I hope you look forward to it too. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Santosh, and it's an honor for me also, and a privilege for me also to be on your show. I've seen a couple of your podcasts. I mean, they're wonderful, and I feel privileged. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. That means a lot to me. So I would love to begin from the very beginning, and I know this question might have been asked to you a lot of times, but what was the first inspiration for you to serve?
Oh, okay. That's an interesting story, actually. Inspiration-wise, I think that time I didn't know, but now in retrospect, I think I know because my father was in the Air Force, and then he, went to HAL and got permanently absorbed there. But Air Force background was there. And secondly, my school was so I lived throughout in my growing period in campus, defense campus, Air Force campus, and my school was very near to the runway. And all these aircraft, I remember Hunters and MiG-21s used to take off and disrupt our classes. And during the break period, we used to run and climb on the wall to see the aircraft. I think that created a lasting impression and maybe inspired me to join the services. The story I was telling you, I think I'll just take a minute if you want.
For sure, sir.
My dad, old time, so the thinking was very simple. So he wanted me to become a doctor.
Okay.
Why? The reason is my elder brother is 5 years elder to me. He had joined engineering. So he says 1 engineer and 1 doctor. We're 2 brothers. Then that didn't happen. I took biology in higher secondary, but then 1 year later I realized it's not my cup of tea, and I went in for maths also, fourth elective. 1 year later I covered it myself, and maths is the only thing I got distinction in higher secondary. Anyway, so I joined NDA, and now my father said, you join Navy. Again, very simple logic. I said, why? He says, I was in the Air Force. I'm in the Air Force. That time he was still serving, sorry. And my brother joined army after doing engineering. So brothers in the army, you join Navy, all three will look very good in the photograph. I said, nothing doing. I'm going to join the Air Force. Then my mother stepped in. He says, don't do flying. Very dangerous. So I said, if I'm joining Air Force, I'd like to go for flying anyway. I went for flying, and that's how I joined Air Force, and rest is history.
If you could share, if there's some nuggets when you just joined, where did you feel that, okay, this probably is not exactly how I envisaged Air Force as it is. I mean, the initial part of the training, anything which, I know it's going back memory lane, but something which you felt and which probably might inspire some young people who are coming in, who want to come in, that it's not what you think it is. I mean, do you have anything to share? Your early days in the Air Force?
Yeah. Santosh, you are taking me back 45, 48 years back. Yeah, you're right. So I was a weakling, physically. Okay. And my weight was some 38 kgs when I passed NDA, and I became medically, they rejected me first medically. They say you're underweight, grossly underweight. And they gave me 6 weeks to gain 6 kgs, which is a tall order. And I gained 8 kgs in 6 weeks. How I did it is because of my mother's help. That I'll tell you the recipe later maybe. So anyway, I cleared my medical and I joined. But still I was a sort of a weakling, and in NDA, there's a lot of physical activity and running and a lot of this thing. And initially, I used to limp around because of the muscles were not used to so much of physical activity. So I struggled in the first term. But then I hardened up and became okay. And very interesting thing, Santosh, my mother used to tell me, he said, NDA and all, tere bas ki baat nahi hai. She used to tell me, ki, tumhare bas ki baat nahi hai. You will come back within 1 week to 10 days. She was so confident. And she used to tell all my, our friends, family friends and all, that when he went, now she's no more, may I rest in peace. But she used to say, she used to tell the story that when I went to NDA, for 1 month, she didn't touch my room, saying that he'll be coming back. So anyway, I defied all that. I managed to. So what I'm trying to say is that what keeps you going is your willpower, your passion. Joining services is a passion. It's a passion. So if you are passionate about it, you will overcome all the hurdles and all. Then another interesting thing is the Air Force training. When we started flying, we flew in a very primitive sort of a aircraft called Hindustan Trainer 2, ST2. I lovingly call it Dalda 10 aircraft. If you see a picture, it really looks like a Dalda 10 with a propeller in front. It was one lean and mean flying machine, And I had baptism by fire. So it was not easy, the aircraft to handle. I mean, you needed very high level of psychomotor skills, both your hands, legs, and rudder application and moving the throttle and stick. And it was quite a task. And landing on the aircraft was quite this thing. It had tendency of swinging, means going around like a dog, trying to chase his own tail. So if you mishandle during landing or takeoff, the aircraft will swing on the runway. And you are taking off on one runway, maybe it will take off 90 degrees to that runway. So that sort of thing. And I had baptism by fire in my second solo with hardly any experience of 8 to 9 sorties. And just about second sortie, I had an engine failure. And I force landed. So I think God took over the controls and landed for me. But that was baptism by fire. So it was, some ways it was good that in the initial stages itself, I experienced it and I respected flying a lot subsequently.
I really want to touch upon this point because you mentioned passion, you mentioned willpower. And I know you said 45, 48 years back, but that one moment, the first time when you were asked, okay, now you fly, as you walked and got into the plane, do you have any memories of what you felt that this is finally happening? Did you even for 1 minute feel like, Am I sure about this? Is this what I want? Did you have that feeling?
Exactly, Santosh. It's such an exhilarating feeling. And it's not only first time. There's a lot of fuss. And every time you do that, I mean, it really a feeling worth dying for. First time you get into a aircraft, first time you go solo. That solo sortie, first time when you go, it's not a full-fledged sortie. You just take off, do a circuit and land. The sortie lasts for about 5 minutes or 7 minutes. But the confidence which it gives you is lifelong. Yeah, bro, I can do it. I've gone all alone in the aircraft and I managed to take off, do something and land back. And that confidence, that feeling which is there, you can't imagine. Now also, when I'm traveling civil air and all, when you're taking off, landing and all, first thing is while take off landing, my hands automatically go, on throttle and stick. So my wife says, "What are you doing?" I say, "I'm not doing it voluntarily." Yeah. Yes. I mean, when you're coming to land, automatically my hands start pulling the stick back, imaginary stick. And when you're climbing through the clouds and all, I miss flying so much. I feel like getting into the aircraft and, going around and flying in those environment. I mean, it's a passion. That's what I said. Yes. And it's very addictive. More you fly, more you want to fly. Very, very addictive.
I also believe at the end of the day, while you are flying solo, it's the Air Force. There's a lot of camaraderie around because it's at the end of the day, we are all a team. Some experiences of your peers, your seniors, and how did that help you evolve into who you became over time?
Yeah, Santosh, you touched a very, 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 very important aspect of Air Force and flying, and mainly fighter flying. Not only fighter, all sort of flying. The camaraderie and team spirit. It's very, very important in defense services, especially so in Air Force and flying, but all services. The reason is very simple and straightforward. When you're in combat, your life doesn't depend on you. Your life depends on your wingman. He is watching your back. Okay. His life depends on you and your life depends on. If that is the case, if your life is depending on the other person, what sort of bonding would you like to have?
Absolutely. The trust.
Trust, that bonding. So that is very, very important. So team is very, very important in this thing. And that is what, when I cover these things with the younger generation now, this is one of the points I emphasize on team. Team spirit, team building. And in the squadron is like a family actually.
Right.
Okay. It's like a family. We look after each other. We, drink together. We eat together. We socialize together. We live together. We laugh together. We share our sorrows. We share our happiness. And straight away, if you come to know, you can make out. He's your friend and he's something is bothering him.
Right.
Obviously, you're a mental support to him.
Right.
You find out, okay, bro, what is happening? What is bothering you? And maybe keep him off flying for some time, help him out. So it's like a family. Yeah?
Right.
It's like a very, very close-knit family. And team spirit is very, very important.
So on that note, there's something which I think especially after COVID, it has come to the limelight, which is a focus a lot on mental health, mental wellness. In those days when you started off, and I, whatever little I know of is you hear stories of PTSD, you hear stories of mental challenges, and you also hear that not enough is being done for the veterans who actually come back. As you were growing and in the force, and as you were evolving, you would have had, your peers, or even for that matter, even you. When there came a point where you would say, this is not happening, I need to take that break. Were you able to take that break, or how did you come out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. The 2-3 aspects to it. Again, I know you're touching really very, very important aspects of service life and Air Force in particular. So mental health is very, very important. And the saying in the Air Force is, especially for the pilots, never carry your worries to the cockpit.
Yes.
Okay. Because if you're mentally not sound, I would say not sound is the wrong word maybe. If you're mentally upset about something, it does affect your decision making. And in the air, you need to take split-second decisions.
Correct.
You have to be mentally fully aware and fully with the aircraft,
Right.
with the situation. You cannot afford to be, thinking of your worries and something else when you're flying.
Right.
So that's why they say never take your worries to the cockpit. And as I said, support system is very good. The doctors check you out, and more than the doctor just sees your pulse and sees you, but the team which is you're working with, the squad mates, and they know. Yeah, they can make out, looking at your face, they can make out something is bugging you. And there is enough provision. Like you can go yourself and say to your flight commander or CEO, I'm not at the moment feeling okay to fly, and no problem, no issues. They keep you off. They help you out. They keep you off flying. And that provision exists. Okay. Having said that, now what is happening is, I'm afraid, the trend is changing a bit. Old times, the social media was not there. It's a boon as well as some issues are there. So we used to spend a lot of time together in the SCON, off the SCON, playing games, drinking together, spending time together, chilling, as they say in these days. But what is happening now is with the social media, people are too much drawn into the phones. Now, even if you go to a restaurant, anywhere, you find 8-10 people having a get together, the chilling as they call. But most of the time they're on the phone.
Absolutely so.
So what is happening is this is causing an adverse effect on the team and the camaraderie and the mental health of the people. They're feeling a bit withdrawn. And so that camaraderie or closeness which was existed earlier, I think is reducing a bit because of this culture of social media.
Sure. Just a question to this one is, I understand that your team, your peers around you, and you could have conversations. Was there also counseling sessions and therapy sessions around your time when people needed help to be able to, express themselves if there were challenges happening?
Professional counseling is available. In case a person needs it, you have counselors in the station and our medical branch and other places where they can help you out in case professional counseling is also required.
You deciding to join the Air Force, right? That was a decision.
Yeah.
As you join the force, and as you grow in ranks and positions, there were times when you had to make decisions, because sometimes we make decisions, right or wrong, but we have to make. Key moments in your professional career where you felt, you look back today and said, maybe I could have probably handled this differently. Maybe this decision should not have been.
Yeah, Santosh. I'm amazed, yeah. You're touching all the right chords. So I will answer it in a slightly different way, this thing. You're very right. There are a lot of decisions you have to make. And as you grow higher, your decisions, the influence is on many more people. So as you grow higher, the decision making becomes more challenging. I would say a little bit more difficult, and a lot of consideration has to be given. Maybe when you are younger, maybe your decision will affect 10 people. But maybe when you go higher and all, it may 10,000 people or 1 lakh people it will affect. So your decisions have to be very, very considered. Okay, having said that, there are a lot of occasions when you're in a dilemma, especially when the decision is not very, the decision matrix, I'll call it, is not very clear. It is 50-50, either this or that. I still counsel and advise people, including my children also, that in life, there'll be a lot of situations you'll have to take a decision. Take a considered decision. Actually, by the way, I've written about decision making. It's an art. It's an art and a science both. And there are tools available to help you in decision making. I've written it on my blog about it. And very interesting topic it is. Anyway, coming back to your question. So you do think back in retrospect, maybe I could have done this way or that way. But I always counsel everyone or tell everyone from my experience that take a decision. A lot of people, hesitate in taking decision. Firstly, take a decision. Take a considered decision. Don't be rash. Don't be, rash in your decision making. Consider the whole thing and take a decision. And more important is, in retrospect, don't blame yourself for that decision. Because when you took that decision, there were circumstances which were existing, maybe influenced you to take that decision. The circumstances, the inputs which you had, so you took that decision. Okay. Now, in retrospect, you're wise. Maybe I could have done it other way around.
True.
But don't blame yourself for taking that decision.
True.
That is very, very important.
True.
Okay, another aspect to it, how life is changing now. Now, a lot of systems are there which are coming, which are AI based with machine learning. So they have decision support system. And another thing called what if option.
True.
Okay.
True.
And that is all possible because of technology.
Correct.
So what happens is they have plethora of inputs coming in from various sensors and various this thing. It's so much of a data that human mind maybe cannot handle it. So the AI is handling it and then giving you some sort of analysis and some sort of decision support in terms of that your options are these and this is the preferred option. It may not be foolproof. It may not be absolutely true. But in the end, you have to make your own judgment. But there's available. And what if option is there where you can play it? Okay, if I take this decision, what will happen? If I do this, that also helps. So I'm saying life is becoming more complicated.
True. I have, on that note, especially when you brought up AI, and because I've been in and around technology, even then, I feel that when we talk about AI, sir, I believe that somewhere my fear is we don't lose the human touch and the human emotions. Because it's like I was having a guest yesterday. She's in the field of healthcare, and I had a very straightforward question to her. Do you think robotic doctors will really make a difference? I mean, I need that human interaction. When I make a decision, it's not. Sometimes you would have made a decision, sir, and correct me if I'm wrong, which would have affected people. I mean, more than just a decision to go out there for a war. It might affect people. I'm not sure technology can be a great support system, but I'm not sure that can really help in making that, because somewhere at the end of the day, we are all dealing with people. And I think and I'm not against AI or robotics or any technology, but I think at the end of the day, technology is just an enabler. It's just a catalyst. It's about the people.
So you want my views on it?
Yes, sir. Please.
Okay. I'll start with two quotes, Santosh.
Yes.
One is, technology is a very good gadget, but a bad weapon. Number two, on AI. AI still cannot match the human stupidity. That is in the lighter vein.
Yeah.
But, so you're right. You had a guest who spoke about robotics in the field of medicine.
Yes.
You finding systems with microsystems which are injected, and like cancer. I was watching a video yesterday, a cancer elevating micro this thing. It goes inside and keeps moving around and dispenses medicine only on the cancer affected cells.
Yes.
It's like a surgical strike.
Right.
On the cancerous cells.
Absolutely.
I mean, amazing, where technology is taking us. Similarly, in the field of aviation, what is happening is, you mentioned about few of the technologies, artificial intelligence, machine learning, the computing power, miniaturization, nanotechnology. And so computing power, miniaturization, nanotechnology, robotics, all these combined are ideal for aviation. Because in aviation, in a fighter aircraft, what you need is very high computing power, yet a very low weight. So if all these are combined, you find a small chip can do so much of. These days, the aircraft which are coming are loaded with computing power. Now, the trend which is coming is, now there are two aspects. One is now you've heard about drones and the robotics and unmanned platforms. I call it unmanned platforms because drone is a very generic term. And unmanned platforms are being used in every domain. Okay, whether it is war fighting in the air or on the ground or water or underwater. Now, the debate which is going on is man in the loop. Okay, well, the man, actually, some of the movies which you see with the machines taking over, robots taking over and fighting humans as such, because of their AI, because of their machine learning, their decision making, their closeness to the humanoid, which they call it, they're scary actually. But actually, the world is moving towards this gradually.
Right.
In field of aviation, air war, I will talk about. We have not reached that stage. Where we reached is, now what is happening is, you have these unmanned platforms and you have manned platforms. Both have got advantages and disadvantages. Okay, I will not go into, because the subject in itself, we can go in for hours. Just suffice to say, there are advantages and disadvantages. So the trend which is happening, we call it 6th generation or 7th generation aircraft, which will be coming in now. The concept is called loyal wingman concept. What it means is there is a manned platform which is leading, and then you have unmanned platform of different sizes and different capabilities who are following them, and all they're doing is a common mission.
Mhm.
Second is, even if you have an unmanned platform,
Correct.
somewhere at the back, even these drones, if you see control room, there is some human element is there who's taking the decisions. Like I said, AI has still not reached the level of human stupidity.
Right, right.
So the man in the loop is still there, and in future also, the man in the loop will going to continue. Near future, I'm talking about, where this concept, I call it mother goose concept, where the man chap is in front and all the others are following it. I call it mother goose, that term I coined. But worldwide, it is known as loyal wingman concept. Maybe years to come, the AI and machine learning becomes so powerful, and these technologies, they move, quantum technology and your space-based internet availability, data availability, the computing power becomes so high that these machines become smarter and smarter. Maybe the man in the loop might go out.
When we talk about AI, we talk about machine learning, and I understand that that is going to be the future. My next pertinent question to you, sir, is about skilling. Do we have the skill resources uh, to up the game? So you've got all these technologies, but at the end of the day, they need to be operated upon. Do we have the kind of skill? Are we undertaking these training? And if we are doing so, because at the end of the day, there's this all big scare which is happening around, AI will take away all our jobs. And the one school of thought is, well, it's not taking away, it's actually helping you become better. When it comes to the force, I mean, I don't think we can take that kind of risk, especially people who are in the harm's way protecting our nation.
Yeah. So in the defense also, defense basically comes, the people who are coming, or even the equipment is coming from all the what is existing in the world. We're not that we are aliens from outside or something. No, I'm not saying that you implied that. What I'm bringing out is that we're the same people. So change is definitely going to happen, and it is happening. So the technology is coming in a big way into defense, and technology is a very, very important factor for the changes which are coming in the way we conduct warfare, and especially air warfare. I'll give you another quote. Air Force is a very, very highly technical service. Man can walk without technology. Man can swim to a certain extent without technology, but man cannot fly without technology. It's a very, very technology intensive service. The aircraft is full of technology, otherwise it won't do the job which it does. So if you have to deal with technology, you have to be trained for it. So obviously the services are taking in the manpower. They are making that reviews, continuous reviews to train people accordingly and appropriately. And if you notice now, if you see the QRs, all the people who are joining services through NDA and others, they're getting a BTech degree. Like earlier in our times, we used to get BSc or BA degrees. Even BA degrees was acceptable. Then it became all BSc, technical, so that you study, science subjects. Now it's gone to BTech. Okay. And not only that, there's an ecosystem which exists in defense industry, which is user is the defense services, then you've got R&D, then you've got manufacturing, then you've got think tanks, and you've got IITs and things like that, who ideate and innovate. So in this whole ecosystem, the technology is coming in a big way. So you need people who are qualified in dealing with it. So that services are training people appropriately to deal with all these new technologies.
When you look back, the times when you were in the force, and now you see the current breed of people, do you feel things would have been a little different if some of those technologies were available with you?
Oh, definitely. There's a sea change. I mean, now I've been watching Air Force for the last 65 years, but I've been in the Air Force for the last 40 years, and plus now, so if you include training, then 44 years, and plus now 5 years watching closely as a retired officer, so 55 decades here. I mean, when I joined the Air Force, we used to do gun tactics, close combat, like in Top Gun 1. The aircraft were hardly any. I mean, they had radars and they had electronics and avionics and all, but not of the caliber which is existing now. From there, we've gone into BVR combat, we have gone into network environment. Now I can be sitting in Bangalore and controlling an aircraft which is flying over Srinagar and dealing with an aircraft which is over in the enemy territory. That sort of networking is available. The weapons have become so smart. I can launch a weapon which is 100, 150 kilometers away, and it could be autonomous, it could be precision weapon, it can fire and forget. I mean, they become very, very smart. They could be specific for a particular target. I mean, world has changed. There's a sea change in the way we conduct air war and all. So obviously, and at least in the Indian Air Force, I've seen 3 or 4 cycles of modernization taking place. And of course, if we have platform like Rafale, and what to talk about 5 decades? If this platform was available with us about 5 or 6 years back when Balakot happened, the story would have been different. The kind of weapons it has, kind of standoff it has, kind of precision it has. So technology is coming in a big way, and the things are changing. The way we conduct warfare is changing dramatically, I would say.
Strategy and how the changes are happening today in the Air Force. There's a huge push from the government around Atmanirbhar Bharat, building within India, building for India, and maybe selling it to the world. India's own indigenous aircraft has been. Your thoughts around it?
Santosh, before I come to your question related to basically self-reliance, what you're saying,
yes,
and going one step ahead, make it for the world. Before coming that, you touched upon in your previous question and beginning of this question, you touched upon a very, very important aspect. I'll just spend a minute if you allow me.
Sure, please.
Technology is fine. Latest equipment is fine. You may have the latest equipment. But there is a very, very important factor which you just mentioned in passing: strategy, training. Okay, like China. We used to say China, we have an advantage in olden times, T3 advantage. Terrain, technology and training. So terrain still stays, but technology helps you in overcoming it to a certain extent. Technology, China has gone way ahead. They're racing with USA. In some of the kind of money they've invested in research and development on technology, some of the fields they're ahead of USA. USA is worried. Yeah. Training is one thing. Now, training is a generic term. They use training, but I will add training, morale, and your strategy, doctrine, tactics. All these are factors which are, you can club it into one and say cognitive factors or non-cognitive factors or whatever you want to call it, but they are very, very important. Motivation, morale, training, strategy, doctrine, and tactics. 6 things. And that is where India does well. Mentally, our soldiers, our airmen, our sailors are very, very strong. They're very well trained. They're highly motivated. We review our strategies and tactics continuously. We are battle hardened. And we live for our nation. जिसको बोलते हैं ना नाम नमक निशान. In army, if you go to any unit, there'll be written नाम नमक निशान. कि हमने नमक खाया है इस देश का और this thing निशान. Nobody can touch that flag. The chap will die for the flag. So these are the factors which motivate the chap or to get killed himself, kill the enemy or to get killed himself. So that is very, very important. That is our strong point at the moment. Now coming to your question of Atmanirbharta, it's a necessity. It's no longer a luxury. There are various reasons Atmanirbharta, like now, especially with the recent happenings in the last 3 years, your Russia-Ukraine war, 2 years now, Israel-Hamas war, and your COVID pandemic, has thrown up 2 very, very important issues. One is globalization. China has become factory of the world. It became. Why? Because of various reasons. It had the space, it had the infrastructure development capability, it had the manpower, which was available cheap. It had autocratic way of governance where, they were assured things which are required for manufacturing and setting up industry. So all the major powerhouses went there. And it became so rich, it yielded dividends from it, and then it shown its true colors. So the world has realized. Second is the effect on supply chain. the resilience or lack of resilience in supply chain and the problems which have been created and the supply chain issues being used as a weapon, during the pandemic due to opportunism. So these combined lesson is very, very common. I call it reverse globalization. So most of the countries have realized that they need to be self-reliant. And self-reliant not only in the defense field, I mean, it's a very, broader term in everything. Chip manufacturing. Everything revolves around chip now.
Absolutely.
And chip manufacturing is centered around 3-4 places. So a lot of countries have started now making effort to do that. So it's not only chip, I mean, self-reliance in a very, very broad term. So be it in defense also. So it's a necessity. In our case, we were following the leapfrog method of, self-reliance, especially in the air domain. LCA started 40 years back to replace MiG-21. Leapfrog was, okay, I put a deadline. At that particular point, I will produce a equipment or a platform or a system which will be at par with the world. Correct? Now, when I reach that place, I find that whatever I produced is still not world-class standard. There are time delays and it's costly. The world has moved on. So leapfrog didn't work in our case because of various reasons. The ecosystem which I mentioned earlier, the user, the R&D, the think tanks and the people who ideate and innovate and the manufacturers, they were all working in individual silos. There was no accountability, there was no competition, and there was no cohesion between them. Teamwork we talked about. Anyway, that is past now. And with these recent events, the government has given a lot of impetus to the self-reliance. So under 17 odd verticals, they have done that. Ease of doing business they have reduced. FTI is this thing. They are encouraging the private participation. They are making the proper DPSUs, the public sector units, more accountable. Okay, they're infusing technology. They're giving them more budget. They're harping on lesser import of issues, things which you can make locally. They are encouraging joint ventureship. They're dealing with other countries to give the technology. I mean, there are a whole lot of this thing. It's a topic in itself. It is yielding results. We have, nutshell, the bottom line is, it's a necessity. We have woken up a bit late. We have gone into 4th gear. Maybe we need to go into 5th gear. And good thing which you have started is not only we're talking about make in India, we're talking about make it world. The reason is world has realized that they centralized globalization model which they applied was too centralized. Okay, which is not, it doesn't look after the interest of all the countries. It makes few countries very rich.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that is why this reverse globalization or the decoupling which is taking place, there are opportunity in it. Opportunities to make for the world. And India has what it takes. It has the space, it has skilled manpower, it has infrastructure development capability, it has strong minds and technically oriented minds, and most important, willingness to do it. But there is a lot of work to be done. A lot of other countries which are smaller, their ecosystem is working very well and they are grabbing these opportunities. We need to get into the act and make for the world.
I think in many ways, it's also giving shape without really getting into the politics of it. But if you look at the way the world is shaping up, the global leadership, whether it's the United States, there is some kind of a, I don't know if uprising is the correct word, but there is this thought process amongst the common citizen. It could be because certain leaders are talking that language where they're saying, we are doing everything for the world, but we are not doing anything for us. This mantra is happened in the United States, probably coming back again. If you look at Italy, you look at some leaders in France who are now, in parts of Europe. And I would ask this not from the political end of it, but from a pure strategic point of view. Isn't it really important for us to look after ourselves first before we look at the world? Just my thought.
Yeah, that's another very interesting thought which you have brought out. Actually, the world is in transition. And last week I wrote a blog. The heading is World in Transition. And world is in transition because of these reasons which I said. You know, people talk about multipolar and unipolar and bipolar and world, and earlier it was US and Soviet Union as two world powers. Then Cold War happened, and then USSR breaking up happened, and all those. So now China is coming up. China is racing with US. So the world is actually in transition. So US is trying to retain its number one position. China is racing towards it, and sooner or later going to challenge US for the number one position. The timeline, Chinese are very, very patient people, and they have a timeline. And I said, 2049, they said we'll have world class army. What it means is that they left it very vague. What it means is they'll be number one power. That's what their aspirations are. And so what is happening is there are a lot of multiple powerhouses which are coming up. It's not only China. And India is also one of them, considered as one of them, the regional power or whatever it is. And the issue is in the Cold War or the earlier time, whatever multilateral organizations, the UN and the lot of bodies associated with the UN, they were global in nature because the world wars which took place, whole world got sucked into the wars. So world is changing in the sense now these institutions are being questioned. Like you said, my interest, my country's interest. So they're being questioned because they're not serving everyone. Now recently India asked in the UN was, 2 years Ukraine and Russia war has been going on. How come UN has not been able to control it? That means the multilateral organization is not capable of looking after the interests of all the countries.
I don't know how this will be taken, but I sometimes question the legitimacy of the United Nations itself. They serve the interests of people, even for that matter. So look at NATO. If I were to look at it today, I think the founding principles and what it does today, totally different.
So I was coming to that. Yeah. You jumped the gun, and good. Our thought process is similar. NATO you mentioned. Let me start with that. NATO. Like after the Cold War finished, there was no reason for NATO to expand.
Absolutely.
And actually, there's no reason for NATO to exist. But it's expanding, and it's coming on the doorsteps of Russia. I fully, I feel that Russia had a legitimate reason to do whatever it has done.
Yeah.
I mean, the method of doing is maybe wrong, but if you're bringing weapons to its doorstep, obviously he's going to retaliate, look after interest. Now, coming back to the issue of how the engagement of the countries is changing is one is multilateralism is changing to unilateralism. What it means is, firstly, 2-3 things. One is the regional organizations are springing up, which have more legitimacy, more interest, because regional issues, the global countries, all the countries in the globe will not be interested in it. That's not my problem. Yeah,
absolutely.
Whereas regional will deal with the problems of the region, which is valid for those countries.
Correct.
Number one. Number two, what is happening is the engagements are becoming interest based. Okay, you're from one country, I'm from the other country. Right. On issue ABC, I'm with you. On DEF, I'm not with you. Yes. And this is being accepted worldwide. Yeah. This is second change which is happening. Third, which I feel personally, I don't know, people may not agree with it. Like earlier, there are two drivers which drive the international happenings and relation, and even in the war, joining of one camp or the other, opposing it or not opposing it. One is ideology. Right. And religious ideology is a very, very strong factor. Right. And second is interests. Right. I feel earlier days, ideology was the more driving factor, factor which was more prominent. I feel interest has become more prominent. But you cannot ignore the ideology, because the public opinion depends on ideology. So there is a threshold. You take Israel-Hamas war. Everyone is condoning Hamas the way they did the attack or the way they behaved in the beginning. Correct? There are a whole lot of countries who are with a similar ideology as Hamas, but they're opposing it because of the way they did it. But if Israel crosses certain threshold in retaliation, the common people of that country, because of the ideology, may force the government to take side. Okay, that is one. Now coming to India, if you notice, India's stance has been totally interest-based now. Yes. We never joined any military alliance ever. Even in 71 war, when we were pushed against the corner, against the wall, with Russia, we had a treaty of friendship and strategic this thing, but we never had a military alliance treaty like NATO or CENTO or SEATO or whatever you want to call it. India has been doing a tightrope walk. The pressure is on to join either the Western camp or the Eastern camp, Russia,
Right.
China, and but India so far has managed very well.
Right.
It's a tightrope walk, but we have managed very well. And our engagements are interest based.
Absolutely.
Okay. It's looking after our interests. So you're very right in your hypothesis that engagements have become totally interest
Absolutely.
based.
Because if you look at the recent where the US Secretary of State and our foreign minister was there and he was asked this question. And I think his response was brilliant.
Brilliant. Absolutely.
Keeping that in mind, when you said that India has been walking a tightrope, I think, I've been a student of history. I love reading up, but whatever little I've seen, I'm looking around, I clearly see that for the first time, India is not being bullied to take decisions. We take decisions in our interests, and those who call it populist, I think really don't understand. India is always good as long as they are on your side. Otherwise, India is not good. I think brushing it aside by calling it populist, I don't think that's the right answer. If I am the leader of my country and I don't take care of my own people and my own country's interest, then why am I being why is the country hiring me?
Yeah, right. The trend is changing in the sense that thought process, either you're with me or you're against.
Right.
It's changing.
It's changing. Absolutely.
It's not necessary that I'm not with you. That doesn't mean I'm against you.
Yeah.
So this thought process is changing in the world. And India's stance, which we're taking in various issues, this aspect is being accepted by the other countries. There are 2-3 reasons for that. Mm-hmm. It's not that they're just accepting it for accepting sake. India is rising. Okay. The Indian market, look at it. Okay. We are in a very, very good position, but a tricky position. I call it, we are like a bride who's being wooed by 2 grooms or maybe more grooms. So it's a good opportunity for us. However, it's a challenge as well. If we play our cards properly, it's an opportunity. If we don't play our cards properly, then it's a challenge.
2 things. The way I look at our progress, this is how I have seen it, sir. I think when different branches, executive branches of the government, the civil society, the citizens, when we all work in isolation, the growth, I think, will happen, but limited. But when all of us come together with a common cause that our nation must progress, and when I say that, I feel that you don't necessarily need to be in the military to serve your nation. Each one of us are leaders in our own right because we lead our life, the way we conduct our lives. I think when I talk to people, I always say this in my different episodes that the most I have learned is on this podcast and not in the business schools and in my job because of the diverse group of people I meet. And I've realized this, that as a nation, we will progress when we start to believe that we as citizens need to contribute too. It's not just left to the military, it's not just left to the government or elected leaders. That's my thought process. And do you feel we are in that direction? We are going in that direction? Do you see a lot more integration of different aspects of the society?
Actually, when you were talking just now,
yeah,
with every sentence, my mind was racing because every sentence of yours, some aspect or the other I was thinking of. The team building or team working together as a team, focus on the thing, on your target, working together. Is it a necessity or is it a desirable feature? Various things are going through my mind. I will draw you back towards warfare rather than, going into politics and all. But
Sure.
It's got an element of leadership also.
Yes.
Which we have been talking about. Number one, somebody asked me in one of my appointment, what are the most difficult tasks which you felt was there in your appointment, this tenure? So I said, most difficult, not difficult. He said, what is the most challenging task? So I said, my most challenging task was to keep my team focused and together. Yeah. It's a focus towards what is my goal and aim, and together means towards working together towards it. That's what you just now
Yes,
mentioned
yes,
in broader sense.
yes.
And I've written a blog also on this aspect. I call it a car theory of management. We can learn a lot from the car. I will not go through it, but one of the reasons is if the four wheels, they have to work in together in one particular direction to reach a destination. Anyway, it's an interesting concept. Read my blog on car theory of management. It's a very
Absolutely,
short
sir.
blog,
Yeah.
but we can learn a lot from it. Now, coming to the broader sense, yes, not only in defense services, even in a nation, the warfare is totally changing. Now, it's not no longer there is limited to only military or the defense. It's a whole of government approach. And how it is changing is anything and everything is being used as a weapon. Number one, China has mastered this art. And China is a major challenge we are facing. Not only us, world is facing it.
Yes, absolutely.
And second thing is, so anything and everything as a weapon. It's not restricted to military. It is not restricted to war times.
Exactly.
So no declared war doesn't mean there will be no hostile action towards you. And declared peace doesn't mean that there will be no hostile action once again. And the new domains are coming up: space, cyber, electronic, information. The major change is no longer the only military person is affected, the common man is affected. These anything and everything as a weapon during peace and war can create man-made disaster situations which will affect everyone.
Absolutely.
So if it affects everyone, everyone has to get together to deal with it. That is why the word used is whole of government approach. And the other word used is civil military fusion, which the China model is very good. So what I'm trying to get at is it is a necessity at the moment that everything we work together. We talked about technology earlier, Santosh. In India, what used to happen is any new technology used to be first used for civil users. And then it used to come into military. Now the time has come of parallel processing. That while that is what one of the pillars of Chinese model is. That what happens in civil also happens in the military. And whatever happens in the military also happens in the civil. Out of 6 verticals, there are 6 verticals of civil military fusion. One of them is this.
I want to touch upon an aspect which I fear the most, because I see that happening, having lived about 13, 14 years in the US and working. I've seen one thing, which is the advent, and which is now which is beyond control. I don't think any president can save it now. The advent of private contractors in the military, and sometimes I don't know how much to believe, but if Hollywood movies are to be believed, the war rages on because the private contractors need to be taken care of. Do you feel with and you very rightly mentioned public-private partnership coming in, especially in the military. I fear, and I hope it does not happen, that too much of private intervention or integration with our defense, because to me that's sacred. I hope that I'm by no means a socialist or on that side, but I think intervention of private participation sometimes scares the hell out of me, sir.
So you don't have to be scared on our count in India's case. I think in our case, the problem was the private participation in the defense industry is too less.
Yes.
Too less.
Okay.
Okay. Having said that, now 3 aspects I will talk about based on your this thing. Number one, you talked about war and this thing. Russia-Ukraine war. Who all are laughing in the end? Who are the gainers?
I think the United States is a great gainer in this.
Who in the United States? The defense industry.
Yes. And especially those private contractors.
And other geopolitical wise, China is laughing. Yes. Because his major adversary, USA, is involved with this thing. He is busy with him, leaving him alone. His partner, Russia, is weakening himself, and that is for his benefit. He'll be the subordinate partner in the partnership. By the way, China, it's very interesting. All the countries have 3 classifications as far as other countries are concerned. Your enemy, your friend, or your neutral. China has only 2 classifications. Either you're enemy or you're a subordinate. So Russia weakening is in his favor. China, USA preoccupied is in his favor. So the two people who are laughing is China and the defense industry of US. Correct? Okay. Number two, in our case, one of the problems why the leapfrog didn't happen, and now the time has come to do pole vault, is private participation was very less. There are various reasons for it. Firstly, our whole model was structured like Russia. Russia and US, there is a difference. Last week, I just did two back-to-back seminars, one on Indo-Russia track to diplomacy for 2 days, and one was a Indo-US collaboration. Very interesting. So the US model is where all the patents, everything is held by the private industry, which you have alluded to. And they have the control. The government doesn't have much of control. So if you have to deal with it, you have to deal with the government as well as private industry. So the cost and all those things which come up. Russia is easier to handle because G2G contracts that take place. Because most of the industry, defense industry, is controlled by the government. So there it is G2G, here it is P2P. So that is the model. Coming back to India, the Indian participation of private sector is very, very low because everything was reliant on DPSUs, the public sector units. And they didn't have any competition, no accountability. So that is one of the ills why the leapfrog didn't happen. Now with the private partnership coming in, joint ventures coming in, government is encouraging them. So we need to reach a slightly higher level of private partnership, which is happening now, but it will take some time. So you don't have to worry about the aspect of them reaching a total control like in USA.
Personally, I'm all for government completely keeping away from my day-to-day life. But I think there are certain aspects where you do fear because as a citizen of Bharat, I really want us to be right out there. But there are certain values and principles which should drive where we are. I feel that's where Bharat as a democracy stands out vis-a-vis the United States, probably the only other living democracy we have today. So from that perspective, you touched upon the Ukraine-Russia war, you touched upon Hamas, Israel, and India so far has been able to do a very tight walk.
Tightrope walk.
Yes. I'm actually, I avoid the word rope because I don't even know if we have a rope now. But Israel, great friend of India. And I think finally we, in the last few years, just कहते डंके की चोट पे we say you are our friends. But at the same time, I also admire the fact that how we've not completely isolated away from Palestine or the cause of Ukraine. There is a war going on, and from a broader perspective, it'll affect all of us, humanity. Sitting right now, where do you think India's position is? I mean, do you think I'm sure it's not our war to fight, but there are certain things we need to safeguard. Do you feel strategically India needs to safeguard a few things as the war goes on and on?
The 4-5 sentences which you said, if we take one by one and start talking about it, I think we'll need 2-3 days maybe, not a few hours of podcast. But generally, you're right. We're coming back to the factor which I covered earlier, issue-based engagement, interest-based engagement. So Israel has become one of our good friends. Actually, military diversification is taking place. Earlier, what happened was during 60s and 70s, India needed desperately military modernization. The partition took place. The Pakistanis were sitting on a head, 2-3 wars, one after the other. The Chinese really got into the act. We had this thing, and India needed desperately to, add muscle power. Right. That muscle power didn't come from the West. That is the opportunity they missed out. They sided Pakistan. Pakistan joined SANTO. In 1971, USA sent their fleet into Bay of Bengal. The only people who came to our rescue were Russians. Their interest was not related to economy or the market as such, but more on geostrategic interest. Right. They saw India as a future partner in their geopolitical interest rather than economy. That's why they gave us equipment and everything at a lesser cost. They allowed transfer of technology. MiG-21 aircraft were licensed produced in India. That is a unique defense cooperation. Nowhere else does such a thing exist. Then And they gave it at a very easy interest rates and very this thing. So means it was forthcoming. But still, we didn't have a military alliance with them as such. Now, what has happened is after breaking of USSR, their defense industry did suffer. And we also suffered because most of our equipment, 60, 70, 80% different figures are floating around were Russian region. Now is the second time when India needs technology infusion, it needs modernization, it needs development of its comprehensive national park, what we call, not only military, economic, everything. And this technology and all, Russia at the moment is unable to provide because of various reasons. One is their technology is not kept pace with the rest of the world. Secondly, they're preoccupied with the Russia-Ukraine war. Third is, the other countries have moved way ahead, like China and USA and some European this thing. So we are diversifying. So where are we going? West, Israel, France, Europe, some countries. Okay, we are going and buying equipment. From France, we brought Rafale. From Israel, we buy all electronic equipment. From US, we have bought a whole lot of platforms now, Chinook and helicopters, attack helicopters, C-130, all the equipments. But these are again interest-based. When we, like our foreign minister said very rightly, when you go to buy in the market, buck for money. Yes. Okay, bang for buck. That means whatever money you're spending, you should get the best. That is what is happening. Similarly, your engagement with these countries are keeping our country's interest in mind. So we are keeping all options open so that in time of need, if one tap closes, at least we have other taps to rely on. That is what the philosophy we are following. And what I feel, if you were to sum it up, earlier a foreign policy was, non-aligned. Now it is a policy of equidistance.
If you look at Sri Lanka, how India came forward, and
you're going to talk about neighbors now.
Yes, if I'm allowed to.
Great.
Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
And then we have a Maldives-like situation.
Yeah.
And Maldives really playing into Chinese hands in a big way. Lakshadweep, second naval center coming up. Two questions, sir. One, India's interest absolutely paramount, especially with neighbors, because I think for a very long time, we never, I think post 2014, and you would be in the best possible position to share this, but our lookist policy, look around your neighbors. And I remember when our Prime Minister got elected the first time, he had all the SAARC leaders come for his, and that was very strategic in nature. First question, inherent advantage for India, obviously when you have close relationship with neighbors. But if we look at our neighbors very closely, it's very tricky for India. I mean, Sri Lanka, the way it went into Pakistan, the less said the better at this point in time, with all respects, as it's a nation. China. How will India position itself in such a situation? Because I don't think the Asian region itself is united. And so do you see in our policies, in our approach, militarily and otherwise, to really, take on the things which are going on around us?
Again, you brought in 3-4 issues. The role of neighborhood, role of China in the whole thing, and the Asian, this thing is togetherness. I'll go backwards. The last one. I am remembering my school days. There always used to be one class bully, who was physically stronger than the others, and a weakling like me, he will always bash up or, impose his strength on the weaker people. So what he used to do is, in classroom, I mean, everyone of us know, what did we used to do? We used to resort to collective security.
Right.
It means all the weaklings used to get together and deal with them collectively, correct? Right. Same thing happens in the world. So like you said, Asian countries are not united together. I think that is what will happen. If the China carries on bullying the way it's doing, it will be pushing these countries together. And
my biggest cause of concern is that it's only a matter of time before Taiwan would be taken over. I mean, China has mentioned that in no uncertain terms.
Yeah, China has got expansionist desires. China believes is not a nation state. Everyone else feels is a nation state. And grabbing territory worldwide is not acceptable now. Yeah. But China is still in its primal thought process, that a primitive thought process, that obeisance from everyone. And he feels that he's an empire state. What it means is that if you're powerful, your empire expands. And if you're weak, your empire
Contracts.
shrinks,
contracts.
Okay. That's what Chinese thought is. Now, coming back to our neighborhood, okay, there are two aspects to it. China is one way very smart. It works long time. And it has also got a philosophy of, that Sun Tzu, that strategy of achieving the objective without fighting. And the string of pearls, which is called surrounding the country, the principle of, what do you call it? The enemy of the enemy is my friend. Right. Correct? So what he does is he's developed all around India, all the countries which he's taken on one side by whatever means. Pakistan is totally now a vassal state of China. Right. It's totally in control of China. Right. Militarily, all equipment is Chinese. Economically, they're holding them into the fist. BRI now even worse. I mean, they're totally with the China. The debt trap which Pakistan has, majority of it is towards China also. Right. Of course, they have many credit cards. I call it credit card economy. Nepal at one time was with us, is gone China way. By the way, all these countries are youngsters in these countries, the younger generation are willing to experiment with China. And Chinese goods and Chinese economy and Chinese free money is free with his purse are trying to, there are very attractive options available. So Nepal has gone this way. Bhutan is one country with us, but China is trying to make inroads into it desperately. Bangladesh is 50-50. China is trying to come in into big way. Myanmar, they already have control over. They have a base very close to Andaman Nicobar. Now coming there, Sri Lanka, you know the story. They're controlling their port and everything. Maldives, recently, if you hear the news, the president is saying all Indians out and China in. Okay. Djibouti, they have a base. So if you see all around, full circle I have covered. String of pearls they have made. There's another reason. Subsequently, they have China has got expeditionary capability they're developing. That's why they're spending more money on the Navy and the Air Force. Navy, they're building aircraft carriers by the dozen. And they're saying by 30, they'll have some 6 aircraft carriers and maybe more. They're called aircraft carrier groups. So they'll have 3 of them, one working in South China Sea and one spare, one maybe coming to IOR also. Sooner or later, they're going to come. Right. The ships are coming much more. So they need bases. They're developing these bases. So we'll see more China in the years to come. Yeah. Our future generations will see more of China. So for India, it is very, very important that we keep our neighbors together. Yes. We have unfortunately lost our neighbors. We are trying to woo them back. We need to be like an elder brother in the region. We need to be magnanimous in our approach. Yes. We need to get them back in our fold. I will not say in our fold. And people are slowly realizing that Chinese engagement is purely from China's interest point of view. He'll give you easy loans, he'll make infrastructure in you. In return, he will want something. He will always want money, or he will control you, he'll give you debt trap, or he will try and control mining rights, or whatever it is, I'll control your ports and this thing. Whereas India's approach is not only mutual development, also empower the country where you're going in for. So in the long run, we have a better approach, but our task is slightly more difficult because all these countries have already gone into China way and we need to get them back. So this policy of neighborhood first, which India is adopting now, is very, very important. We need to go in a big way into getting these countries
correct.
back.
Because also, so the thing is, even if you have enemies around today, the reality of the matter is, and I think they will also realize that we live in a world of collaboration and cooperation. There is no way anyone can work in isolation anymore. Even your worst enemies have to sit down with you and have a conversation, because otherwise it won't serve the purpose. 2 very important questions. I clearly see the United States and India, and they might be a different school of thought, but I think these are the 2 of the most diverse and probably the only 2 nations which actually has any kind of democracy left in the truest sense. And I think that there needs to be a lot more strategic cooperation. But somehow, when I see a lot of, when I read, when I watch, I see there is a lot of cynicism at the American side. I mean, they're not fully and wholly into the relationship. Somehow I feel that something is missing, even in the shake hands which happen. Secretary Blinken, his reaction to that moment when our foreign minister was asked that question about, Russia and the US and the balance. Is it because somehow they feel that the days of upmanship are over, and they are not able to take that, stand where the United States of America will say this is what needs to be done, and then they would say, yes, we are friends. So I don't know why, but I feel that you have to take a lot of things with a pinch of salt coming from the US, and how much ever they say that we are great partners, first choice partners and stuff like that. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah. Santosh, I've done 3 discussions, or you can call it seminar or panel or whatever, this thing on this topic with the 2 think tanks in US. And recently the team came from Utaha, which I had mentioned last week. So I've been saying the same thing. See, whatever I said about China is also true to America. That America doesn't have friends, it has interests. That is the philosophy they follow, number 1. Number 2, they feel they are too big a part to bother about India. This present warming up which is taking place is because of 2 reasons. Straightforward. 2 interests of their, not reasons. I will call it 2 US interests. Number 1 is the defense market. Okay, India is buying. We have bought C-130, we have bought C-17s, we have bought Apaches, we have bought Chinooks, we have got P-8Is, we have bought something I'm missing. Anyway, we are buying equipment from them, and this costs money. Yeah, there's a lot of defense market. At the moment, India is the biggest defense market of US. Right. That is one interest. Second interest is to counterbalance China. Right. So Quad or whatever they're trying to do and all. So these are the 2 interests why these things are warming up.
Right.
But back of the mind, from US point of view, I mean, they feel that we are too big and India is just this thing. Because of these 2 reasons, they're just warming up. From Indian side, the trust deficit is still there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I won't call it trust quotient or something. No. History, back of the mind, we are not forgotten here. That when the time came, when we needed desperately, they went to Pakistan. Right. They sided Pakistan, they gave them equipment. Even in Balakot here, F-16 with AMRAAM were used, both American. We picked up the debris, called the Americans and showed them, this is your equipment which is being used against us. They sided our enemy. They sent the fleet to coerce us, strategic coercion, which is called. Yes. Okay, so that. Now, third thing is sanctions. Twice they put us on sanctions. Recently also, when we were buying S-400 from Russia for months together, that fear of sanctions was continued, and the threat of sanction was given. Katasa, which they call it, Katsa or CATSA, under which they, the reason for giving sanctions. So these things play up on the mind. So you have to be careful. You cannot purely get into Western. There are a lot of people, even in defense, who are for that we should change over from Russia to go full bore into American fold.
Yes.
But there is a lot of scare in that. Tomorrow, if the tap closes, you're left high and dry.
Absolutely.
So that trust issue is there.
Is there.
That is a problem.
Because I feel it, and that's why, I hear the Secretary of State Blinken, the President of the United States, and people saying, "Oh, India absolutely needs to be a full-time member of the United Nations. We're all for there." I never seen them out there really rooting for India.
No, only Russia is the one who's rooting. Now also they keep saying that Russia and India and Brazil should be there.
Yes,
that's what Russian stand is.
Correct. One very important aspect which I wanted to ask: peacekeeping forces. And you have been a part of it yourself. We need them all the time. India plays its fair share.
So, firstly, coming to India, India has been part of the peacekeeping forces quite of this thing, and there are 2 charters under which it does it. One is the Global UN Charter, okay, wherever it is required, and second is bilateral. Like bilateral, we went into Sri Lanka, we went into Maldives earlier, and the first ever venture outside to help a country was Nepal, actually, 1950s, if I remember. The king was, the Ranas were revolting, and the king was under threat, and he requested India to extricate him. That is where our Indian Air Force went in and got him out. As far as UN is concerned, we have participated very actively in thousands of people. Personnel we have given, and main examples where Indian Air Force was actively involved is like Somalia, Sierra Leone, Sudan, Congo. And Congo, though, 3 times we have gone in, and with personnel as well as helicopters. Chetaks, Mi-17s, Mi-8, Mi-4s. So Mi-4, I don't remember whether I'll have to check. But we have been sending helicopters, and they've flown thousands of sorties there. And our personnel have gone in. Our one of the Sudan, one of the countries, I'm forgetting which one. Even our women unit went in from policing force. So India has been participating in it. All the other countries have also been, and it's an enriching experience, by the way. You get to these countries. Of course, it's a challenge also to deal with the situation there where you're a alien or you're an outsider. Not alien as such, but you're an outsider, and you don't know the dynamics of it. Although you're told about it, but still it's a challenge, big challenge, but it's an enriching experience. You work together with whole lot of personnel from other countries, and you learn a lot. You learn about things, plus you gain, you see what equipment is being used by others, and UN gives you. So it's a gain also as well as a challenge also. So other countries also participating depending on how much they can contribute. Bangladesh, for example, at one time they had a policy where they used to grab every opportunity to go for a UN mission. It was a policy of their defense forces or for the government, because the reason was they were enriching themselves with these participations. The money was coming in, the equipment, the exposure, everything, which they couldn't afford early on their own. So India has been giving its, participating in all these UN operations in a big way. And also one aspect before I thing, that participation also depends on your situation. Like at one time we were short of helicopters, then we had to withdraw, and then again we became okay, so we had sent it back. So it depends on that also. But we had been putting our due share into the thing.
Kind of wrap up this segment, sir, with just 2 very important questions. Key priorities as far as India's defense modernization is concerned. Strategically, how do you see it evolving, especially with the Make in Bharat strategy? Number 2, are we leveraging modern technology enough? Do you think there's always more you can do, but especially because I think now the wars are going to be fought beyond cyberspace. I think it's going to be fought in space. And is it correct that India is also looking at Indian Air and Space Force? I think there is a move towards that. Your thoughts on it?
Yeah. So 2 topics you have covered. I think we can go on for at least 1 or 2 hours on each. Yeah, modernization. So as I said, at the moment we are in a state where there's an urgent need for modernization of our defense forces because of, one is technology advancing and affecting the warfare, and which is the second topic we'll talk about. And the second reason why urgent need is because of the geopolitical situation. China was quiet all these years. We have 2 inimical countries, Pakistan and China, both nuclear powered. So Pakistan at the moment is a challenge, not a threat. It's an irritant, I would call it. China is a challenge. And their collusiveness, that is the togetherness of Pakistan and China, is a threat. So far, China was quiet. Now it has become very, very belligerent. If you see, every 2 years they have a major, I call it a pressure cooker theory. They put the pressure cooker on the fire and they control the threshold. And when it becomes too hot that any major action can come, they reduce the pressure. This is all. So every 2 years, if you find, Chomar, Doklam, Galwan, they have something or the other, and that they keep nibbling our territory and things.
It's also a distraction for our leadership.
Yeah. So we are in an urgent need to modernize. How are we dealing with it is by modernizing. One is self-reliance, which you talked about, which is a must because of all other reasons which we talked about earlier. So we are trying to encourage self-reliance. Secondly, infrastructure development. We are lagging, we lagged behind. It said that differential between Chinese and our infrastructure, I'm talking about border infrastructure, it was 50 to 70 kilometers. If you could reach from the border, they could reach 5 to 7 kilometers. Now they're at the border and we are trying to catch up with them. But they've gone slightly ahead again. In the sense, we are trying to catch up for the reach. They are gone into speed. The same infrastructure which they had, reach faster. So we are still doing in the catching game. And border infrastructure, roads and other things, bridges and other one thing. There's a lot of other infrastructure we have to talk about, maintaining and absorbing the technology, infrastructure required for that, making IAF field, making operating surfaces, helipads, road rail, there's a whole lot of defense infrastructure, protective infrastructure. So that is number 2. Number 3 is reorganization to deal with future challenges. You talked about new domains, cyber, space, electronic war. China has made a new service. It's called JSSF, Joint Strategic Support Force. They put all the 4 domains into one, and it has got an operational role as a supporting role. USA, who had a space agency, who had a cyber agency command, they are studying the Chinese model and trying to redo this thing. We have not reached anywhere. We have been going on for a space command, cyber command, joint forces command for 20, 25 years. But we have reached only phase 2 where we made agencies. We have not even made commands. So we need to step up on that. So reorganization to deal with future challenges of warfare. Then civil military fusion we talked about, whole of government approach. A lot of work is going on in India, but as I said earlier, in a nutshell, we need to go into 4th or 5th gear. Okay. So modernization, we are trying to induce technology also, because the technology is a big factor. We talked about a little bit about it. The whole warfare is changing. Okay. And so these are the nuances as far as modernization is concerned. And there's always debate between, whether you should spend money on defense or you should spend money on development. Now we are in a state whereas there's no defense, there'll be no development.
Absolutely.
So it's become a necessity. So we need to spend more money on defense, which we are doing, but it takes time. Technology absorption or gestation takes a long time. It's not that tomorrow you decide and day after you got the capability. To convert the technology into capability takes a long time. Okay, it involves ideation, innovation, how to convert the technology into a gadget or a weapon or a platform. That ideation required. Then you need R&D. Then you need manufacture. And after manufacture also, it needs absorption in the defense services into learning how to operate it. You need infrastructure to absorb it, to keep it. Then you need maintenance of it, operation of it, how to operate it. Then you need to embed it in your doctrine, strategy and tactics. So all this takes time. So we have woken up, but we need to move much more than what we had.
In all of this, what we discussed, the one thing which is of paramount importance is strong leadership. Leadership at the core of the government, and we as individuals, every single citizen, taking ownership in whatever we do. Having spent almost 4.5 decades in the force and now as a leadership consultant, going to corporates, institutions, again, I have 2 parts to this question. One is, of course, the wisdom and the experience you have gained and you passing it over. 2, the world is a very different place than what it was when you started off. Do you see the whole leadership approach being very different from what it was?
Very pertinent question, Santosh, once again. So leadership, actually, there are a lot of facets to leadership. First aspect, when I was doing some research on leadership, I found 2 definitions of leadership, both by coincidence were from US presidents, one 6th US president and one 40th US president. So one said, if your actions and demeanor or whatever you do inspires anyone to do more, to learn more, and to achieve more, you're a leader. Okay, which I found a very, very correct definition. Every one of us have got some leadership role or the other. Even if your elder brother and your younger brother, initially follows you, you're a leader to him. Okay, you look up to your parents, they're a leader to you. So that is one good definition of leadership. The second definition also was equally good about leadership, which he says that before that, I'll just come to another point. You talked about political leadership, this leadership, that leadership. By tenanting that appointment, okay, I'm chief of air staff, or I'm CNC, I'm giving example of Air Force, or I'm a defense minister, or I'm prime minister at political level. That appointment doesn't make you a leader. That appointment gives you opportunity to be a good leader. Correct? What you do in that appointment, how you lead the people, how you lead the country, how you lead the organization, how you manage the affairs, how do you take the team together, that how do you grab that opportunity and do good with it is what makes you a good leader. So that definition, second definition, he says, good leader is not the one who does great things. Good leader is the one who makes other to do great things, his followers to do great things. So I found these two definitions very, very interesting. The second aspect which you brought out, leadership has got a lot of responsibilities. You have to be a good manager. You have to show empathy to your subordinates. You have to keep your team together. Very important, we talked about earlier, decision making. And you have to take decisions, not just leave it like that. You have to take decisions, bold decisions at times, but calculated risk, as we call it, in defense, this thing. Then other thing, very important, which nobody talks about, is there are three qualities which need to have as a leader, good leader. One is you got to have a vision. Very important. And vision will not be abstract. It will not be absolutely clear. It will be a very, very hazy picture. But that's okay. Like China has a 2049, I'll be a world class, this thing. That's his vision. And this was coined much earlier. So long-term vision you have to have. Second is ability to take decision to achieve that vision. And third is calculated risk. If you have these three qualities, then your organization will move ahead. Okay, now the second aspect which you brought out very rightly, what sort of style of leadership do you, this thing? I'll talk about defense now. I'll not, because that is my domain in defense. Defense mein generally they say it is autocratic style. Ki saab ka hukum hai, ye karna hai. And it is required also. Because in war, you cannot have when the bullets are flying, you cannot be sitting and having a conference to decide what to do. So there are a lot of situations where the autocratic sort of style works because of the peculiarities of the nuances of the warfare or the actions or the situations you will be dealing with. But there are certain democratic times also. So best style of leadership I found was situational leadership, where you switch from one to the other. At times you're autocratic, at times you're democratic, where you take everyone this thing. But finally, decision is yours. I always used to say, in a meeting, don't be a windsock. Windsock is, it tells you where the wind is. The people wait for what the leader is saying and then say the same thing. Okay, follow him. No, don't do that. In a meeting, when you're having a meeting to decide something, speak your mind. Okay, give your views. You may be totally divergent with the boss, doesn't matter. Give it, speak it out. That because you're doing justice to the organization. Once the decision is made, it may agree with your views, it may not agree with you. Now it is an organizational decision of the unit or your organization. Thereafter you follow it. Okay. So that's what I used to say. So best is situational, where you switch from the one to the other. In a broader sense, what is happening is the future, the generations which are coming in now as compared to earlier, they're very, very aware. The information is on their fingertips due to whatever reason, the phones and mobile phones, smartphones and tabs and this and that. Information is available. They're very, very aware of everything. Not like old times. So when they're aware of everything, moment you do autocratic type of leadership, the mind questions why. Correct? So I have a theory that the leadership style, especially in defense forces, is changing from tell type to cell type. Tell is autocratic, where you hukum diya, kiya karna hai. Those are also relevant. Cell type is when you give the hukum, you tell him what to do, and also Sell the idea that why are you doing it? Explain the idea. Now you mentioned a word ownership, which is very, very important. When you sell the idea, the involvement of the human being, of the person in executing the job increases fivefolds. Now, if you bring in the ownership angle, somehow convince him that whatever decision has been taken is from the idea he's given. He is part of the idea. That means he also owns the decision. His involvement will go 10 times.
True.
So my theory is that from tell type, you have to go into sell type. But for certain situations, keep that autocracy
alive.
In defense, I'm talking about.
Okay. The cell type leadership which you spoke about is exactly what India is following right now. When you look at the geopolitics, I mean, working together. If you were to take this little bit outside of defense and in our day-to-day lives, what would be your advice to all of us? Because I have learned it that through my experience that leadership, apart from every other thing, the first and foremost, it's about service. In every form. I mean, anyone in any aspect of life you serve, sacrifice. A lot of that is a part of leadership. What would your advice be to aspiring leaders, defense and otherwise in general, who want to be and who are leaders today?
First is foremost and most important, do as I do, not do as I say. That means you have to lead by example. As a leader, your life, your actions, your demeanor, your everything is absolutely transparent. Everyone's watching you. Just remember that.
Right.
But you're under observation all the time. And if you don't follow the dictum of do as I do, you are losing faith of the subordinates who are following you. कि बोलता कुछ है, करता कुछ और है. अपना, he does something else but tells us to do this. And that is total loss of faith in you. So you have to lead by example. If you expect your subordinates or this thing to do something or follow something, you have to follow it absolutely to the nail, to the last screw. Okay, last this thing. That is number one. Number two is, now whether you're a leader or a whatever part of the organization, the advice you said, there is no shortcut to hard work. Okay, absolutely. You have to work hard. A lot of people debate, should I work hard or you should work smart? There is no or. It is and. There is no or in it. You have to work hard. You have to work smart. Okay, and that or doesn't exist. Third is, wherever you are, I follow the principle of 3 I's. Ideate, innovate, improve. Okay. If you leave things as they are, they will never improve. And if you feel that is good enough, not the case. There is always scope of improvement. I always say that a difference between a person who's average and who's above average is only one. That above average chap takes 1 or 2 steps more when he feels that he's done enough. And average chaps, he feels enough and he stops. The above average chaps feels that it is enough, but he takes 1 or 2 steps more. Improve.
Right.
Okay. Last is, be honest, transparent in your dealings. Okay. And most important is, lead a balanced life. Balance is between 2 things. One is the content and second is the presentation in whatever you do. And second is balance between your personal life in the sense work and play. Okay. If you keep working only, that's not a balanced life. And same thing you should inculcate in your subordinate also, to balance the life. Work hard, play harder.
Especially the last part you said, the balance, which I think is so needed. And I think there has been a lot of debate and discussions around it post the pandemic, when everybody coming together. I sometimes say it's really a shame that we had to come across a generational pandemic to realize some of these things. When you were working, I'm sure you had support systems around you outside of your work to keep that balance, the sanity going in your work. As you navigated through your career and grew through your career, are there specific leaders who have inspired you within the force and outside of the force?
Yeah. So, Santosh, that is another interesting point you brought out. I'll just come back to it.
Yeah.
One last aspect which I wanted to cover,
Sure.
The previous one is very important, is discipline. You mentioned pandemic and the need of balancing. I see in the younger generation and the kind of working they do, sitting at a computer throughout, 8 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours, eating meals at different times. How is it discipline? I mean, how are you correlating with discipline? You must be thinking, what am I saying? Discipline is very important, that to self-discipline. Self-discipline is when nobody is watching you. You do the right thing. Everyone knows what is right and what is wrong. But doing the right thing when you're not being watched is what is self-discipline. Okay, I can give you an example of that, but leave it at that. I think that is good enough. And discipline is not only PT parade and saluting and things like that. Discipline in every aspect. Your food discipline, your money discipline, your working habits, your sleeping habits, all encompassing is discipline. How the way you conduct yourself on the road, following the rules. Okay, you go in India and drive and see what sort of discipline exists. And tolerance is very, very important. Second thing, we are fighting with each other on parking lots and this thing. I mean, if we inculcate discipline and tolerance in our youth today, I think our country will really be going. Take the Japan way example. They don't, in the initial years of this schooling, they don't teach anything except for these aspects. I mean, it's a wonderful way of, and look how courteous they are. I don't believe in that I got inspired by one or the other only. I feel, yeah, of course, you get inspired by some more and some less. Obviously, some have more influence on you, some have less influence on you. Like you keep saying your parents have a lot of influence. Same here. I looked up to my parents for a lot of things. I still count on things what they taught me and what this thing, and I'm thankful to them. I have a different way of looking at it. Everyone I interact with, I learn something from them. From some, listen to it now. From some, I learn what is the right thing to do and to follow, and from some I learn what is not to be done and should not follow. So everyone is a teacher for me. So one of my blogs in one of the Teachers' Day, I wrote in that, I say for me, everyone is a teacher. And I thank everyone whom I come in contact with. Some have taught me what to do and some have taught me what not to do.
Before we get into the final segment, which is a rapid fire, and this question could be a rapid fire, but if I were to just ask you this question, sir, if you have to relive all of your service years, would you do anything differently?
I will do many things differently, but I would like to be same school. I loved my school and I enjoyed everything. I would like to join the Air Force and fly as a fighter pilot, and not any Air Force, Indian Air Force.
All right, sir. That was very well put. So I know that you are also, you love puzzles, kind of trying to embed them into the rapid fire question. My team has put together a bunch of questions for you.
Before you go into rapid fire, let me talk about puzzles. That's my passion, actually.
Yes.
Okay. I'll just spend 2 minutes on it.
No, sir, please.
Yeah. So puzzle solving, I realized much later that, I always into it. I used to do a lot of crosswords. And when I was training also, I used to have about 4 or 5 crosswords from different newspapers in my pocket. That time there's digital platforms and the apps were not there. So I used to cut them out from the newspaper and keep in my pocket. Whenever I used to get time, I used to pull them out and solve them. So later on, in 2005, I think I got into Sudoku solving. And then I got into competitive Sudoku solving. So 12 years now I've been to Sudoku Nationals. And then I didn't much time in service. So now later on I got into puzzle solving. Puzzle solving is also another world in itself. Very addictive, both of them. I do 3 to 4 hours of puzzle solving every day. And 4 years I've been going into puzzle solving nationals. Now I realize that when I was younger, I used to love, all our books. Now the trend has changed. All our books earlier used to have at the back questionnaires. Chapter wise or otherwise a set of questions, and some of them used to be objective also. Then there used to be entrance exam, all sort of objective questions, multiple choice and picture, logic. I used to love doing them. There used to be a magazine called Competition Success Review. I used to buy that and I used to solve all those questionnaires. So I realized that I was interested from the beginning. Then later on, I started buying books on all sort of puzzles and Mensa and other books which are there. I still have them, about 20, 30 of them. So it is very interesting. And the best part of what I like is, I mean, it's very addictive also, by the way. Because the day I don't do about 3 to 4 hours of puzzle solving, I feel that I've wasted my time or the day. What I wanted to tell you is that puzzle solving also affects your way of looking at life. More than that, the way you deal with situations. I'll tell you a very interesting thing. Like, I deal with certain situations in a certain way. They are getting affected by two ways. One is my defense background and the way services, and second is puzzle solving. So I'll cover puzzle solving first. In puzzle solving, the philosophy is whatever puzzle you're looking at, keep simplifying it. Keep reading it, keep simplifying it. You keep simplifying it in stages till the time answer stares you in the eye. The answer will automatically come out in this thing. So that is the principle of it. Most people, what they do is see the puzzle, they find it very complicated. It's beyond me. But if you simplify it, you find that it is not so complicated. So that is the philosophy behind it. In real life also, it is something similar. When you're faced with a challenge, faced with a situation, simplify it in segments. You'll find automatically the right action to. Second way how it helps in this thing is defense background. Like in flying, you have any situation, you call it emergency, like you have an aircraft engine failure or something. You have immediate action where your survival is at stake. That means you have to fly that aircraft, bring it back onto the ground. That's called immediate action. Then is subsequent actions. That means you have control of the situation. Now you're taking so that further damage is not done, and you do it subsequent action. And third is preventive action long term, that it doesn't reoccur again. Same thing in life. If you have an accident, suppose you're going on the road, accident. These days people, what they do is they take out mobile and start filming and put it on WhatsApp. That's not action. So what is the first action? See who are injured, correct? Are they alive? Are they bleeding? Stop the bleeding. Pull them out of this thing. Take off the shoes. Give them some air. Give them some water. Give them first aid. These are immediate actions to save his life. Subsequent actions are call for help. Call police. Call ambulance. People, if they are there, tell them what to do, how to arrange and how to help people. That is if a chap is trapped in the vehicle, extricate him or her. That is subsequent action. Third is long-term preventive action. Why did the action take place? Was there a material failure? Is there a blind corner? Is there a speed breaker required? Is there marking required? These are all preventive actions. Similarly, in life, a lot of challenges if you take this way. Immediate action, subsequent action, and preventive long-term action. That's how puzzle solving helps in day-to-day life situations.
Absolutely. And I knew that a large part of it would definitely come because of the nature of your job in defense, which probably helps a lot. And that you mentioned about your absolute love for mathematics, which also in some ways translates to puzzles. Apart from puzzles, you enjoy board games too?
Yeah, I do play board games. I do outdoor also I love. I play golf now. I used to play a lot of squash earlier in younger days. Now the mind is willing, but the body is not. So I play golf and I play billiards and snooker, which was also my passion. I have so that keeps me physically active and mentally, of course, puzzle solving and writing and talking.
Wonderful, sir. So now we come to the final segment, the rapid fire questions. Okay. They'll be quick.
Okay.
Favorite aircraft?
I'm scared.
No, sir. Yeah. Favorite aircraft?
MiG-21.
What do you do to relax after a long day?
Solve puzzles.
Most challenging mission?
So many of them, but most challenging was night flying over the sea on a dark night.
Best squadron memory?
So many of them. I mean, not one, many.
Okay. Toughest decision made?
Oh, that is also quite a few. And I can't single out one. I mean, as I said, as you rise higher and higher, the decision making becomes tougher. And because it affects a lot of people. So, plus military situations also, the decision making is very, very tough because you know whether it can result into a disaster or it can result into success. So, I mean, there are so many of them. I can't really
All right.
put mine to one.
One leadership trait you value the most.
Do as I do. Lead
Mhm.
by example.
An achievement you are extremely proud of.
Reaching where I reached in the Indian Air Force. If you, it's a rapid fire, I know, because a lot of people, including my mother, had inhibitions about it and didn't think that I will reach, and I did.
It's a proud moment for all of us, sir. Go to pre-flight ritual you had any?
Yeah. There is a set ritual actually. There's a set pattern in the Air Force.
No, your personal ritual, like, would it be a little prayer or something?
No, I generally went through the mission or sortie, what do you call it, many times in my head.
Top Gun or Iron Eagle?
Top Gun.
Sudoku or crosswords?
That's a difficult one. Sudoku.
Okay, sir. This is it for the rapid fire questions. I can say that I have been extremely enriched, and I am extremely grateful that you came on our show. We are a very young podcast, and we need all the support. I will become a better storyteller after this episode. I can say that from my heart. Quite emotional right now. So that's it from our end, sir. And I think this is a conversation which should go on for a long, long time. There are so many stories you have, and it'll be my absolute pleasure to bring those out. Thank you very, very much for being on the show, for coming over and supporting us. We need all the support we can. Always, always grateful. And this is a memory I'll carry with me for a long time to come. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Santosh. I enjoyed talking to you. It was a great pleasure. And you reminded me of so many things in my life which I cherish. And thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity.
I think what we went through this episode was not just 4.5 decades of experience, but wisdom, leadership skills, geopolitics. We covered a lot of things. But what I would take back with me is service, sacrifice, discipline, and always believing in the goodness of life. Thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy.
And thank you for listening to this episode of the Between Us podcast. This podcast was recorded at Taper Fox Studios in Bengaluru, India. Our sound engineer is Moinak Chakraborty, and our producers are Arnav Dogra and Santosh Kumar. Our associate producer is Samyak Kamble. The video for this episode was processed at Viewfinder's Edit. The Between Us podcast uploads episodes weekly, and we'll see you next time.